Hey, what is up, mortals? It is Sam Gabriel here, and before we get into today's video, there are a few things I would like to say. Firstly, a thank you to everyone who worked on this project from beginning to end, and secondly, we would like to announce the WTC Naruto Minecraft server, which will be acting as the sponsor of today's video. On the WTC Naruto server, you can play as a ninja and build your own village. There are many different clans for you to choose from, so it would be awesome if you joined us over there. Now lastly, this is a complete series video. So if you're interested in seeing more of this sort of video, then make sure to leave a comment in the comment section and leave a like. It really does help. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's get into the video. The day school started up again. It was raining. Someone recognized Midoriya on the train ride as the boy who got second place in the sports festival. It wasn't long before the crowd took notice, and he was swarmed with questions and words of support. After the initial fluster from the unexpected attention, Izuku held some light conversation with a few of the other passengers and thanked people for their support. Ida ran past him as he neared the school's gates. He told Midoriya that they'd be late if they didn't hurry. Tenya made a point to be 10 minutes early. As the two entered the building and put what they needed to in their lockers, Izuku tried to confront Tenya about what had happened to his brother. It had been all over the news. The hero killer. Stain brutally injured in Genium. Midoriya couldn't shake the guilt and foreboding feeling enveloping him. It crushed him that there was a chance his former master could be responsible for the living hell Ida's family was now experiencing. He was brushed off and given an apologetic smile before the two went to class. Before Aizawa entered the room, you'd have thought it a zoo. It was loud. Students scattered about in groups while talking over each other. Some were leaning on desks and chairs while everyone spoke over one another about the morning's events. Practically all of them had been noticed by pedestrians while commuting to school. With the sound of the bell and Eraserhead's groggy entrance, the class sat down and shut up. The previous atmosphere was completely gone like magic. The class was told that they would be picking their hero names. The past atmosphere was back in an instant, more robust and louder than it had been previously. Aizawa put their rowdiness to an end with a glare that would make most villains wet themselves. He explained the process of how internships would work. When he displayed the results of the sports festival, it was clear who most of the pros were interested in taking. Midoriya had the most interest, followed by Bakugo, and trailing behind them was Todoroki. The rest of the class had nowhere near as many people interested in them. The stark contrast didn't go unnoticed by the others either. It quickly became the topic of conversation. Aizawa continued his explanation to the class. As if on cue, Midnight took over the lecture. She explained the importance of the names that they would be picking that day while Eraserhead took a nap. Everyone was given 15 minutes to come up with the names they'd use. The first two who volunteered to have their names reviewed were Aoyama and Ashido. Their unique names put awkward pressure on the rest of their classmates to come up with something good. Tsuyu volunteered next. Her chosen name gave rise to cheers and chanting from the class from how normal it was. Everyone went through their names, one after the other. Katsuki's attempt was immediately rejected for being too villainous. When Izuku's turn came around, he decided on the name Deku, much to the surprise of the class. He explained that someone had turned the derogatory name into one filled with positivity. They ended with Bakugo attempting to come up with a second name. It was rejected just as quickly as the first. The rest of the class was spent deciding where they wanted to intern. Midoriya split the names of those who were interested in him into two columns, and those he thought were less than adequate. There were only a handful of names in the former. He was mumbling to himself as he charted out the pros and cons of each hero he considered, much to the class's amazement. Towards the end of the time they had to pick an agency. Ochako and Izuku talked about her choosing Gunhead. She explained that her fight with Katsuki had brought to light how much she neglected the possibilities that came with strength. She needed the ability to fight. They talked a bit more, and after school, All Might visited the class to speak with Izuku. Immediately he was able to see the change in All Might's demeanor. He was sweaty, trembling like he was scared. Midoriya questioned him, but he was ignored and just told to follow along. The pair walked to a secluded part of the school. All Might's legs trembled and his face struggled to keep its signature smile. He explained that Izuku had gotten drafted by another hero. Midoriya was perplexed by the reaction his predecessor was giving him based on this news. He had gotten drafted by tons of agencies. What was one more? All Might explained that this one had previously been a teacher at UA for a year and had taught him. He told Midoriya that this hero, Gran Torino, was one of the few who knew about One for All. Izuku decided then and there that he would pick this hero, but not before Toshinori inadvertently instilled the fear of 1,000 suns into him. All Might parted from Midoriya with a side note. His request for his costume had been finished. On the day their internship started, Ochako and Izuku made sure to confront Tenya about his brother. He didn't listen, giving them a forced, remorse-filled smile. He was about to walk off again when Midoriya started lecturing him. "Your brother is a great hero. A true hero. He stood by his convictions and was strong enough to follow through with them. Acting out of hate and self-interest will turn you into the furthest thing from a hero." Tenya didn't bother dignifying what Izuku said with a response. He simply turned from his two friends and walked off. Not long after Ida was gone, Midoriya did the same, leaving Uraraka stuck looking between the two. She couldn't help but hope everything would turn out all right. After wandering for a bit, Izuku found himself in front of an old, decrepit apartment building. Everywhere he looked, there were deep cracks, chunks missing or out of place, and shattered windows. He mentally prepared himself. Whoever he was interning for had to have been a great hero. Midoriya walked into what he thought was a crime scene. A short old man in a white and yellow hero costume lay face down, a pool of red coming out from the body along with what looked like his intestines splayed out. On instinct, Izuku shifted into a stiffened battle stance. His eyes darted around. There was nothing to indicate a struggle or what might have happened. He kept his guard up as he took a careful few steps further into the room. He slowly neared the body, each step silent and his hand on one of the pocket knives he carried around. At an unexpectedly fast speed, the body twisted its head up and shouted that he was alive. The sudden movement startled Midoriya, and he jumped back, knife ready to throw. Seeing this, the old man stood up and put his arms in the air as if to show that there was no threat. His speech was relaxed, as if he weren't on the ground assumed dead just a moment ago. "Sheesh, calm down. No sense of humor, eh?" He put his hands down and started going through the discarded case that held Midoriya's costume. "Fire and attack! Show me your one for all. I'd like to know to what degree you can control it. Nice costume, weapons too. Put her on and come at me." Midoriya looked at him, perplexed by the man's behaviors. Before Izuku could say anything, the man looked back up at him with an innocent, blank smile and asked who he was. Midoriya grabbed the case containing his outfit and started heading out. "I need to get better at using this power. All Might doesn't have much time left. That's why I don't have time to mess around with you, sir." He was stern and immovable in his speech. He was there for business and made that loud and clear. As Midoriya approached the door to leave, he simultaneously heard the cracking of tile and felt the breeze of something passing by him. Looking up, he found the old man with his fingers digging into the wall to hold him up. He had a toothy grin on his face and legs bent, ready to pounce at any time. He challenged Izuku. "Then I'll tell you once more. Come at me, you neophyte." He continued on and explained that the way Midoriya used One for All showed him more than enough about how incompetent of a teacher All Might was. He demanded Izuku put on his costume so that they could get to work training. Midoriya smirked at him. There was no doubt in his mind that this was Gran Torino. He complied with the old hero's wishes and put on his costume. There was one thing Izuku was still worried about. "Are you sure this is okay? Maybe moving to a wide open space would be better. If I get carried away, I might accidentally break your stuff. Gran Torino, you—" Midoriya got cut off by his, for the time being, mentor. "You sure do talk a lot." He was so carefree and relaxed in his mannerisms and speech that what happened next caught Izuku off guard. Gran Torino seems to vanish before Midoriya's eyes. The only indication he had of where his sparring partner was the wind created by his fast movements. The next thing Deku knew, he was sent to his knees by the impact of Torino using him as a step. Izuku turned around to see he was still bouncing around the room like a bullet ricocheting from surface to surface. As if to answer his question from earlier, Gran Torino landed on his microwave. The entire thing ended up bent inwards with the window on the door shattering before the door itself was ripped off by the impact. Torino gave a toothy smile to Izuku, the challenge he offered written on his face. "Seems like you couldn't perceive my true power. Hit me with what you showed off at the sports festival. To choose such a wet blanket of a ninth successor, All Might's a novice among novices." Gran Torino continued their game, showing up Izuku every chance he got. When Midoriya tried to counter Gran Torino's incoming attacks, his movements were easily dodged or countered. He was utterly outclassed. He thought to himself, "It takes too long for me to switch where I'm using One for All. If I could shorten that time, I might be able to fight back. Or if I can figure out what happens during the sports festival." Midoriya's training continued into the night. Thank you all for sticking around, and I hope that you enjoyed. Before you leave, we would just like to let you know that We the Celestials has many other channels for your entertainment and viewing purposes. All the information you'll need is right below here in the description, so feel free to check out all the other incredible projects our team creates. Secondly, on behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank everyone involved in the production of today's awesome content. Their details will be in the description below. That's all for today's video, so goodbye and have a divine day.